Dream Lover by James Lawless. It was my last summer job in Ireland before I started travelling abroad. I collected pools for a couple of charities and 2 hospitals. The guy who employed me, Larry Conway, used to collect at our own house, and he saw me at a loose end and asked me what I was doing. I told him I was waiting for exam results, that I had just sat the Leaving Cert. Larry had built up quite a clientele for good chance pools around the suburbs of Dublin and Kildare. "I need a man in Kildare," he said. Glad of some handy cash, I agreed. My initial run was in the new housing estates around Leixlip and Maynooth, which I found tough going. Larry seemed to take a shine to me, and after a couple of weeks he asked me to come on board to be a partner in the company. So, as well as making my commission on each person from whom I collected, I would also be in on a percentage of the spoils. "And I can give you my Honda 50 to get around on," he said, as an extra enticement. "I don't need it any more since I got the car. We can build an empire," he said. I jumped at the prospect of having free wheels and thought of the extracurricular opportunities that owning such a vehicle could afford, particularly with the opposite sex. We went canvassing, Larry and me, a couple of nights every midweek. "You'll be doing this soon on your own, and eventually you'll be recruiting others," said Larry, the eternal optimist. "It just goes to show there's big goods in small parcels," Larry said, as we came out of the Dara Cinema in Naas one night, where we had just seen Alan Ladd in Shane. "Look at Alan Ladd taking on that big fella Jack Palance, and the girl falling for him and all. And Bobby Darin," I added, of whom I was a fan. "He wears lifts in his shoes." I used to be slagged about my height in school, but Larry gave me a bit of confidence, and now I was determined to overcome my shyness. There was this girl who lived in an impressive dormer bungalow on the Kilcullen Road. She stood tall in the doorway in a light indigo cotton dress, a glint of sun catching the healthy glow of summer freckles on her face. She gave her head a little swivel, and her shoulder-length blonde hair shuddered in a wave of sensuality. When she said, "My name is Anne-Marie. You're Anthony, aren't you?" I felt a strange sensation. Her voice was soft music, and I was only brought back to earth when her hand touched mine in the transfer of coins. I noticed the faintest trace of chocolate in the right corner of her mouth. I was determined to find out more about Anne-Marie. I decided to ask my sister Una if she knew her. Una was 2 years older than me and was street savvy, or so she liked to pretend. She went to lots of parties, but we hardly ever talked to each other in any meaningful way. She made it clear she didn't like my interfering in her thing, whatever that was. "What would you know about girls?" she said. "You're wasting your time getting notions about Anne-Marie." "Why, what do you mean?" I said. "Is it because she's taller than me? Is that it?" "Jesus!" my sister said, and left the room. That was all I could get out of her. I sunbathed most afternoons in my back garden, finishing out July, before I would set out canvassing with Larry. Bobby Darin's Dream Lover was played a lot on the radio that summer, and I endlessly dreamed about Anne-Marie. She would be lying in her back garden too, perhaps, a much bigger and more private garden than my semi-detached little space, where you could hear every neighbour's sound. Maybe they had a swimming pool. After her swim, she would rest in the sun reading a book of poetry, and every now and then she would make a little sigh as some romantic line moved her. She would swivel her hair and throw a glance up at the clear blue sky, and her beautiful face with the high cheekbones would be brightening with each summer day, and her long shapely legs would be getting nicely tanned. But each Friday evening after that first encounter with Anne-Marie, when I called to the Mulrooney's, her mother answered the door, and I failed to see her. I continued with Larry to canvass, to build up our empire, but somehow The idea of empire sounded hollow to me now. It was a presumptuous term to bandy about. I mean, a word like that fitted in with Roman or Persian. To use it in the context of good chance pools was over the top. Larry didn't see it that way, of course, and even spoke of extending the empire into the county of Meath. I got the results of my exams and I passed. My parents bought me a tape recorder to mark my success, and I taped Bobby Darin from the radio. As I sat in the garden with the summer heatwave continuing into August, I sang along with Bobby. Every night I hope and pray a dream lover will come my way. And I dreamed about Anne-Marie. Did she have a boyfriend? Hopefully not. In the event of meeting her again, I bought a bar of Cadbury's Dairy Milk chocolate, which I intended to give to her, remembering the stain in the corner of her mouth. It was to be a gesture of goodwill. I treated myself to a new bomber jacket, and I would ask her if she would like to come with me to the Blue Max. Larry had enjoyed it and said some of the scenes had been shot in Kildare. I still had the bar of chocolate in the left pocket of my jacket, which, despite the heat, I continued to wear to show it off to Anne-Marie. The right-hand pocket held the cinema tickets already purchased for Sunday night. That's how confident I was. I figured if I had the tickets already, it would make it harder for her to refuse. It was now or never. A girl to hold in my arms and know the magic of her charms. As Bobby had been singing. The sun was shining strongly. I rang the doorbell of the Mulrooney house. There was no answer. I tried it again. I listened. I could hear a few bees buzzing around the standard roses. Again there was no answer. I was about to walk away when I heard another sound. Soft singing this time coming from the back of the house. Bobby's voice. My heart lifted. Anne-Marie shared my taste in music. And she obviously didn't care how short a fellow was. I would be able to talk to her now. I made my way round to the side entrance. There was a wooden gate. Dream lover until then. Bobby's voice was propelling me forward. The bolt slid across smoothly. My initial view when I pushed back the gate was of a tape recorder perched on a garden table beside two sunbeds. Bobby was singing, Every night I hope and pray. On the lawn to the right, two girls in bikinis dancing or rather lurching to the music with their arms around each other. The girl facing was Anne-Marie, but she didn't notice me. Her gaze was downwards, fixed on the eyes of the shorter girl. They giggled and smooched, oblivious of my presence, and I felt the chocolate in my pocket turned to mush as they found each other's mouths.